Welcome back to the series of guides on Soundyne Symphony Series Brass. And in these videos, I'm going to give you a look through of the patches that I've made using the core palette patches from the library to show you the cool selection of articulations and how to set up a really interesting patch that allows for certain playing. Now, these patches are designed, in the library you're given core palette patches, which basically includes an effects patch, which is dedicated to all the effects articulations. You're given an expression patch, which is dedicated to all of the sforzando, crescendo, and stuff like that things. And then you've got the legato patch, which has the true legato, which is for more soulful playing. Then you've got the staccato patch, which contains more round robins. And then you've got your sustain patch and your core trumpet patch. Now, really where it's at is the core patch. Now, this is the trumpet solo. I'll start off with the solo trumpet. And I used the core patch to set up a bunch of articulations that would be good for a certain style of playing, just forte trumpet playing with varied expression that could be placed in the mixed and used as a backup for when the trumpets aren't playing legato. And basically, you've got 8 key switches in every patch, and you can customize each of the articulations that go onto those key switches. So you can set the pianissimo sustains to one key. You can set muted sustains to another key, staccatos to another key, expressions to another key. It really works well for that sort of thing. So I'm not going to get too in depth with the technical side of the library. I'm going to show you how it works straight out of the box when you've set up the articulations you want. And this library isn't really for the casual kind of observer that comes along and goes, oh, I need something with a few articulations to do a really quick mock-up, or, you know, chuck in a piece that needs a little bit of brass. This offers a lot more tools, and the tools are very well thought out and separated into these separate articulations to allow you full control. So you might have to work a bit more when composing, and you might have to muck around with the key switches a bit more, but what you end up with is a really dynamic performance, and the sound simply can't be beat. So let's have a look at this patch. This is a patch I made with the trumpet solo using the core patch, and I set all my favorite articulations to that, and I basically designed a trumpet that would be easy to play in the background section and easy to play chords with. So I'd switch from the ensemble trumpets to the solo trumpet and play chords with it. So I've set the sustain forte at the bottom key switch here, and I basically play chords with that, or single lines. And that's good for that strong background kind of rhythmic playing that keeps the piece going. It does have simulated legato, which works fairly well, and it sits well in the mix. You kind of sort of don't notice it that much when it's in the mix, but I prefer to just use this patch as it is. We'll move on. We've got the tongue stop articulation, which is good for if you're doing some sustains or you're doing staccatos and you lead up to an accent, then you lead up to the tongue stop. And that works very well for, like I said, accented sustains where you need to sort of give it that punch after the staccatos. I've got the forte staccatos set up to the next key switch so that I can play parts that move along with other brass instruments. And then we've got the triple tongue articulation next to that one so that I can give a few more flourishes or really fast playing in the middle of a piece. And from that, I have this sforzando fast, which allows me to, if doing staccato, I can add an accent that has a bit more of a swell. And then I've got a swell, a fast swell, to sort of add movement to a piece that's still kind of in the action phase. And then I've got a medium swell after that. Which is good for more sort of slower moments in the song. And then I've put the swell slow articulation at the end for more like soft pieces, or at the end of a song when you want it to sort of all come together. So that's basically how I use these patches, and you've got all your articulations there that are great for performing interesting pieces. And it works very well. This is, like I said, the solo trumpet, so it's recorded nice, and I'm only using the, I'm not using any compression, no reverb or anything. I'm just using the single stereo mix, which is a mix of the close, mid, and far. I won't go too much into the mic positions, because basically what you hear is what you get. Take the more reverberant side of that and you'll get the far mics. Take the more sort of little bit closer, you'll get the mid, and you get the definition from the close mics. And all of them have that kind of nice tail, that reverb. And of course, if you want to use the articulations in a bit more of an experimental way, so if you want to use sforzandos, kind of like staccatos, you can pull the release down and cut off that tail, and then you can basically put your own reverb on top of it. But this is how the trumpet solo works. And using that, you can come up with really interesting combinations that you can get to create realistic performances. So I'll show you a quick performance with just the trumpet solo, playing around with the key switches. So as you can hear there, a really nice solid performance by the trumpet solo without using legato. Legato is something I'll cover in a different video, so I can show you basically how that works for all the instruments. In this video, I'm just going to show you the basic articulations and give you an idea of what the library is capable of. Now, if we look at this next patch, we've got the Trumpet Effects, a dedicated patch that's filled with crazy articulations. Obviously, there are some patches that have more than 8 effects articulations, so you might want to mix and match and choose which ones you want in the patch. But I'll give you a quick look through of the articulations that I've set up in this Trumpet Effects patch. Here's what's on offer. We've got the bend up. We've got falls fast. We've got slow falls. We've got some short stuff. We've got some flutters. Then we've got some interesting trills. Then some warbles. And some warm-ups. So as you can see, with these effects, some of them sound a little out of place, but if you use them judiciously, you get a brilliant, realistic piece that has a lot of that motion and that movement that you would only find in a live performance. Soundine have really thought out how to record all of the sounds in this library. And with the added extra effects, you can even add tiny little... If you find an effect you like on a particular note, and there's a part in a piece where you're doing staccato and you want them to hit that sort of weird effects note to sound like they've kind of minced it up, but in an interesting way, you can add that in there. There's so many different things and combinations of things that you can do using these effects. Now, that being said, I'm going to move on to the core articulations for the ensemble trumpets now. So let's have a quick look at them. Now, the ensemble trumpets have a bit more meat to them. They've got a few more experimental articulations, which, if you get the library, feel free to explore them. There's some really interesting ones in there. And they've got the all-sustain, the all-sustain key switch, which allows you to fade through all the dynamic layers and get a real proper ensemble performance through the dynamic layers like this. A really, really big, beautiful sound. And you'll notice what I was talking about in the intro video. You get that beautiful reverberation. It's got so full of character. You can almost feel the flavor of the trumpets coming through. It's all in that reverberation. And if you push the dynamics all the way up to the top, you'll get a kind of a more quiver kind of sustain that has some vibrato in it as the trumpets really belt it out. I'll let you have a listen to that. And that is pure magic. It's all there. Now let's move on. We've got the key switches again. Same thing as last time. You get the ensemble core patch and you put all the key switches that you want in it according to what you want to play. We have the flutter tongue. I've put the staccato, which contains all of the different dynamic layers, which you can use with both velocity and the dynamics to get a good dynamic flow. And then we've got the step up, which sounds great if you want to go for that kind of bending feeling in the middle of a song. And you can also use that if you want to emulate a kind of frenetic trills, not trills, a frenetic kind of run upwards. So if you time that right enough, you can get a really interesting run sound out of that. Now we've got the sforzando, which again is great for those good accents that kind of sweep out a bit. Then I've put the swells at the end, like I like to do on all my patches. So you've got a nice swell. A step down, sort of when you're getting towards the end of the song. Kind of a whirling motion. And then finally the decrescendo, which is great for adding accents at the end of that song. Really powerful. And when I say powerful, I mean in a dynamic way. And because most of the different instruments have almost all the same articulations, barring, of course, you've got mutes for trumpets and you've got more cluster kind of bends for horns and trombones can slide. You use all of the identical articulations that are provided for each instrument to do a massive decrescendo at the end, and it sounds brilliant. I'll actually show you that in the end video when I show you the song context. Now, let's move on to the next patch. I've created a patch that uses the ensembles, but with all of the mutes articulations. Because I couldn't fit them all in there, I thought, okay, I'll create a separate patch with the mutes, because obviously mute players, it takes a while to put in your mute and take out your mute, so you wouldn't do mute-style compositions in tandem with your normal trumpets as if they were playing the same thing. So I've got the mute articulations set out, and I'll run you through them. I've got the sustains on the first key switch. And on the next key switch, I've put an alternate mute sustain, which is the Harmon mutes. They sound really nice and rattly. And then I've got the sustains for the cup mutes, which is another alternative, which sounds really interesting. And then on the bottom here, I've set up the straight mutes, staccatos, and that sounds really good. So it's really good for that staccato, ostinato type playing. Now we've got the straight mutes forzando. And that's a much longer sforzando I've put there for a added accent at the end of a song. And I've added the last key switches. I've put the straight mutes swell. And finally the straight mute decrescendo. So as you can see there, with just placing the articulations that I want in the key switch slots, I've got myself a great solo trumpet sound, a great ensemble trumpet sound, and I've also got my ensemble mute trumpets that I can muck around with. Now, you've also got mutes for the solo trumpet. They're more experimental type of mute sounds, but I prefer to have muted trumpets be the ensemble, because that way you get the full effect of the mutes and you get that ensemble sound. Now, last but not least for this video, we've got the Trumpet Ensemble Effects, which, as you know, they're going to have a lot of weird effects. I'll let you have a listen to all of them. So that pretty much wraps it up for the trumpets. I've shown you all of the core articulation patches, and as you can see, there's a lot to choose from. It's not just your run-of-the-mill brass library, and with that added recording, the recording depth, the place that they recorded in, it just sounds great, and you can add so many strange performance types or classical, you can even do the hybrid stuff, because they do have some great low brass octave sustains, which I'll show you in a later video. But that's that for that. Like I said, I'll show you the legato in a different video for all of the instruments. And those are the trumpets. They sound great. And I'll see you next video as I do the trombones. Check you later.